anxiety, stress, not emotions that you would associate with the place that a person calls home. Walking through the darkly lit playground, surrounded by the brown tower blocks of the estate, constantly looking over my shoulder.
Making London's streets safer for all of us is, without a doubt, a huge issue to grapple with. And like with all big issues facing society, it can seem a bit daunting. Feeling safe on our streets is about good street design, but also goes back to deep social and cultural issues which can't be solved overnight. And as you can imagine, putting this short video together has been a huge challenge too. Personal security plays an important role in how we feel we can move around, which type of transport we can use, where we feel we can go or linger, and what routes we can take, and what time of day we can move. And crucial to creating an environment that's safer for everyone, those of us in street design, policymakers, politicians, people who make decisions about our town centres, need to think about others who will have experienced London streets in a number of very different ways. We brought together 3 speakers for the latest Street Talks on personal security in London, and let's hear what they have to say.
Beyond the yellow door, that's where my safety lies. The only place within my estate that I feel truly safe. The only space where I'm able to perceive all activity around me. But the estate is also an extension of my home, so I should feel safe within it, yet I don't.
The Mayor launched the Women's Night Safety Charter for organisations to commit to action to promote women's safety after 6 o'clock. So we've got 7 pledges. The most important one is to nominate a champion in your organisation, because that's the person that's going to really help drive the other 6 pledges. In 2019, the Mayor commissioned a scoping study from the University of London on making London safer for women and girls. And that's because we are now part of the UN Safer Cities and Safe Public Spaces programme. And it highlights the nature of the women's night safety in London and revealed key areas for improvement. And there were a number of recommendations, such as reinstate the Women's Design Service, capitalise on the Charter, and integrate a gender perspective into TfL's Healthy Streets approach.
I'm sure we can all think of examples of how places perhaps instill or exemplify distrust, and maybe sometimes responses to ideas around security serve to create places that promote fear, maybe more than they create feelings of safety. And the notion around social safer spaces or social safer design in places is largely around places that can promote trust, can establish greater trust, and can give us reasons to trust both places and other people more. The approach we take from the centre at Central St Martin's around social safer design is what we call a more of and less of approach to social safer design. In other words, not starting with how do we get rid of everything, every single problem, because that's really difficult, but rather how do we start with what we want more of, and how can we achieve what we want less of by promoting or designing for what we want more of. We know, we all know that in any street environment or any public shared environment, we're talking about contexts that are shared with many different people with many different views. And, thankfully that's the case, but perhaps unsurprisingly, occasionally that also generates conflicting ideas around how space should be used, and conflicting ideas around what makes us feel safe or not.
And I think that's why it's also important to really have conversations with people who maybe don't look like you or have different factors. It could be anything really, because I think we could all come and say, I have this reason, or I have this idea, or I have this initiative, but I think it's also understanding the impact that we have on other people's perception of safety, as well as our own.
There's lots of evidence that tells us that sociable neighbourhoods make for safer neighbourhoods. And we learn from them that designing for more social behaviour helps us achieve design for less antisocial behaviour. It's never understood why the Safer Streets design approach went all alley gates, CCTV and lighting, when it was always clear that community-led approaches could make a massive difference and should be enabled more.
So yeah, I think the key takeaways from my talk, it would be that architectural design, urban design can only do so much. I think if you look at the case of Sarah Everard, she was walking on a main road, she was on the phone, there was street lighting. So I think there's only so much that can play. I think us as individuals and communities also have our role. And I think part of that is widening our perspective. So not just understanding what makes us feel safe, but also understanding what makes other people feel safe as well.
Whose voices are being heard most in terms of how our streets are shaped, and whose voices are missed? How can design listen better and respond better? Through lockdown and through the pandemic, lots of us dramatically changed our relationships with the neighbourhoods on our doorsteps. And there are lots of amazing cases from around the UK where people have been beginning to put their foot forward again in their own neighbourhoods. And so some people we've been hearing are saying, oh, I feel like I've built back my relationship with my neighbourhood, or I've come to know it better, even if I don't love it anymore. Feelings of safety are deeply affected by meanings, and physical safety is deeply affected by how people respond to their feelings of safety. So the voices that are coming forward in shaping built environments are critical.
As part of an organisation like Sustrans, who are urban designers, engineers and behaviour change specialists, as well as other organisations with access to local and national politicians and policymakers, we all have a responsibility to push for change and implement it and keep talking about the issue. This video is the start of the conversation, and tell us what more we can do.